Alright, we're going to go over how to do a credit card processor change in Positouch. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have a sales order, and if you don't have a sales order, you cannot proceed unless Ryan reaches out to you specifically asking you to do it. But once you have the sales order and he gives you the parameters and everything that you need, the first thing you want to do is build a purchase order, right? You need to put a purchase order in here. And generally what I do is I go over here to purchase orders, and then I just click on Joey's POs, and then I know that Carolina Western Pub slipstream, this was a slipstream processor change from V5 to V5. This is the same thing that I'm doing over at Anchor Lanes. So all I'm going to do is right click, hit copy, and I'm going to change the name here, right? And I'm going to call it Anchor Lanes FDMS. And I know that it's on slipstream because right here in the line item is where that goes. Alright, so we know that this is PO number 14401. I'm going to go ahead and start building this off the screen here. And the reason why I'm doing it off the screen is because it does have sensitive data that the customer would not want to share with you. I'll be right back. Alright, so once you have built the parameters in slipstream, we're going to go over here and do a build a pull code, right? And we're going to check all these boxes. And we're going to hit submit. We're going to hit OK. Now the important thing is that if this is an existing site, you need to make sure this site ID is the one you're actually editing, right? So you can tell this is the 19,379th site and the 51,393 processor change. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. We want to make sure that when we dial into the site that site ID matches this 19373, and that's very important because you won't be able to store the credit cards in there or get them to download. Let's go ahead and hit configure. Let's go ahead and hit retrieve configuration, and then we're going to paste our registration code in there. Alright, and then once that goes through, we want to test it. I'm going to pause the video again in just a second so I can test it. Alright, and we're back. So I went ahead and typed in the Visa card. They do not take American Express. To test a card, you can go up here to CC Sale, type the card number, expiration date, and the tip and all that stuff. It is so very important that you absolutely test charging it, tipping it, and then doing a refund on it. So we're going to go ahead and do all of that. Go ahead, refund it, make sure that works. Sometimes the processor does not have the account flagged and able to be able to do refunds. So we want to make sure that works. Same thing with tips. With tips, they could be set up not to be a tipped merchant, and that would prevent credit cards from going through with tips. So I'm going to go ahead and try to settle this batch, make sure everything works, and that is completed. Sweet. Alright, so now there's some housekeeping things we're going to want to do. We're going to want to go in here into the batch manager options. We're going to want to make sure that it's set to purge immediately at settlement. That is correct. We want to go through here and just check to see what we got set up. Alright, we're going to hit cancel. Alright, and then we're going to go over here to the credit card server. This is very important as well. Alright, I'm about to give it a second. And it could be that we may need to do some updates and then restart it. So let's go over here. The main thing I wanted to do is to go into here and make sure that the web updates are enabled. As you can tell, it's kind of fighting me here a little bit, but we'll go ahead and try it. We'll set it up for Tuesday. We want to make sure this is long before they open. Apply and OK. We're going to hit yes. Now when I do that, you should see Slipstream right here do something, and it did not. And that's okay. Like I said, sometimes it's going to fight you. We're going to go ahead and go to web updates. Make sure they don't have any of that pending. because that will make a big deal when it comes to stability of the site. When you update it, it also changes the URLs. So like, sometimes you run into a situation where a site is no longer able to process credit cards because we're trying to process over the old URL. So that's why it's important to set up the automatic updates. That's why it's important to run the updates. As you can tell, this site has not had any updates in a very long time. And by the same token, while this is working, we're going to go ahead and hit yes there. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at our Positouch. DIR, because here's the reality. You might only get in there every couple of years to do work. And it's not if the site's going to crash, it's when the site crashes. So we want to make sure our Positouch is up to date, and it is 7/27/2021. DIR PosiW, make sure that looks good. srvp.log, we have all okays there, that looks good. So we're going to do posiw.ini. We're going to look through this. This is declaring itself to be 9. The mirror path is set correctly. That's set correctly. Everything's set correctly. Alright, let's actually check to see if the files are going to the backup server. So we're going to go here to your M drive, and we're going to check first off the mirror folder, and we can tell that by the date there it did copy over properly. We're going to go into the SC folder, and we're going to check to make sure there's actually files in there. So right there is today's check file, and we know that that's mirroring to that drive, so we'll be able to recover the system if it crashes. We're also going to go back and we're going to look for a Midnight Express folder backup, and I don't see one. So let's go ahead and fix that. We're going to go back into here. We're going to go to View Options. We're going to go over here to Replication, and what's wrong right here is that folder does not exist. So let's try to set up a MX backup folder. And let's go over here to the settings, and let's do m:\MX backup / I might have hit enter. I'm going to go back and make sure it saved it correctly. Alright, and since I typed m:, and it changed it to the IP address, that means that it's able to talk to it. That means that the username and the password that was here was right. We're going to go ahead and check offline mode. We got the offline mode set for $100, meaning that any transactions over $100, like 101, is not going to go through, but a $50 transaction could be recorded offline. The cumulative total of batches I think is a little low, but it's not the default, meaning that somebody intentionally went in there and changed it to $3,000, so I'm not going to adjust that either. We're going to go through here and just spot check to see, make sure everything's set up right. We're going to go here, swipe, cards, processors, they are using First Data. I'm not going to go into that screen, but you could go in there if you want to look at it. We're going to go back one more time into the batch manager and look to see if we can do an override real quick. Batch manager override. Alright. I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so let's go back up here now. Maybe since it's got those updates, it will actually let me in here to edit the stuff. You can see what version of Slipstream they're on right there. If you notice, everything came up smoothly this time. Let's go ahead and switch that to about 8:43 a.m. And you can see a lot of the same things in here you could under View Options, including offline mode and all that stuff. So we're going to hit OK and hit yes, and then we're just going to spot check to see if it's backing up the files now. And look, it is. You can tell that by the date and the time. So now when their server does go down, we will be able to recover all their credit card data right here. So that's why it's so important to check those things, especially when you're doing processor changes, because processor changes is something you want to do before they open. It's something you schedule with the customer, and it's a wonderful time to go in there and check backups when you're doing processor changes, just to make sure everything works great. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks.